The digital heart of the global financial system stopped beating at exactly 9:45 a.m. Eastern Time this morning, while the mainstream news was feeding you scripted narratives about political stability and a cooling economy. The silver market hit a terminal limit-up circuit breaker that sent shockwaves through every major trading desk from New York to London. We aren't talking about a normal price increase. We are talking about a systemic failure where the demand for physical metal became so violent that the exchanges were forced to pull the kill switch just to prevent a total collapse of the billion-dollar bullion banks. The screens went dark, the orders were frozen, and for the first time in modern history, the paper price of silver lost all authority over physical reality. If you were looking for a sign that the end of the fiat era has arrived, this is it. The vault doors are being welded shut, and the system is in a state of terminal cardiac arrest. But the market halt is only the beginning of a much larger, more terrifying plan. We have received intelligence regarding an emergency secure line call that took place between the Federal Reserve and the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, just moments after the halt was triggered. The subject was the silver liquidity trap. Internal documents, which the elites are desperate to keep out of the public eye, indicate that 3 major Western banks, including a primary dealer for the Fed, have officially run out of eligible collateral to back their massive short positions. They are trapped in a corner with no exit. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the specific dark pool data that proves this wasn't a glitch, but a coordinated attempt to stop a mass exodus of capital from the failing US dollar into the safety of hard assets. Why do they halt the market? They tell you it's to protect the investor and ensure orderly trading, but that is a lie designed to keep you in the dark. They halt the market to protect the bankers who are on the wrong side of the trade. When silver hits limit up, it means there are no sellers at the current price, only desperate buyers. The banks, who have sold billions of ounces they do not possess, are facing infinite losses. By halting the market, the exchanges give the big banks time to manipulate the digital ledgers, manufacture fake paper supply, and coordinate with the Fed for an emergency liquidity injection. It is a rigged game where the rules are changed the moment the house starts to lose. You're watching a bank robbery in progress, and your purchasing power is the ultimate target. While the COMEX screens are frozen, the physical market is exploding in a way we have never seen before. In the secondary markets and private vaults, silver is no longer trading at the official price of $28 or $30. We have verified reports of physical 1,000-ounce bars being sold for upwards of $85 to $100 in cash transactions across the Midwest. This is the great decoupling. The world has finally realized that the number on the screen is a fiction, a psychological operation designed to keep you from owning the only asset that the central banks cannot print. The scarcity is no longer a future threat. It is a present reality. If you don't have the metal in your physical possession, you don't own it. Period. This market halt was triggered by a massive coordinated delivery request from a BRICS-aligned sovereign fund. Our research indicates that Russia and China have shifted their strategy from gold accumulation to a full-scale silver squeeze. They know that silver is the Achilles heel of the Western financial system because it is a critical industrial metal that the West cannot survive without. By demanding physical delivery of millions of ounces at once, they have broken the fractional reserve scheme of the London and New York vaults. They are using the West's own greed and over-leverage against us. And the system error on your screen is the sound of the trap snapping shut on the American dollar. Notice how every time the metals market explodes, the major banking apps like Wells Fargo, Chase, and Bank of America experience temporary outages. This isn't a coincidence. It is a digital firewall. They are preventing the retail public from selling their failing stocks and moving that capital into the safety of silver. They are trapping you inside a burning building while they use the fire escapes to save themselves. The system failure isn't a bug. It's a feature of the transition into the Great Reset. They want your wealth trapped in a digital ledger so they can bail in your accounts when the commercial debt wall finally collapses. The U.S. military-industrial complex is now in a state of absolute panic. Silver is a non-negotiable requirement for the manufacturing of guidance systems, fighter jets, and satellites. With the market halted and physical supply vanishing, the Pentagon is facing a supply chain crisis that threatens national security. We are seeing reports that the government is preparing to use emergency powers to seize private silver stockpiles from domestic miners to fuel the war machine. This is the reality of a resource war. The bankers told you silver was a barbarous relic, but they are now fighting like cornered animals to get their hands on every gram they can find. The U.S. national debt has now surpassed $37 trillion, and the interest on that debt is consuming every tax dollar collected. The Federal Reserve has reached the end of the road. They cannot hike rates without bankrupting the Treasury, and they cannot cut rates without destroying the dollar's value. Silver hitting limit up is the market's way of saying the party is over. It is a vote of no confidence in the debt-based empire. The halt is just a temporary bandage on a severed artery. No amount of digital printing can fix a system that has fundamentally run out of trust in physical resources. The market halt in silver is the precursor to a broader national bank holiday. History proves that when the elites lose control of the commodity markets, they shut down the entire financial grid to reset the rules. We are entering a window where you could wake up to find your bank doors locked and your credit cards useless. They will call it a cooling off period, but it will be a wealth confiscation event. By the time the banks reopen, the dollar will have been devalued by 50% against hard assets. The system failure is the final warning bell to get your capital outside of the digital trap. JP Morgan, the architect of the silver suppression scheme for decades, has finally hit a wall. Our data shows that their naked short positions are so underwater that even a minor price increase would trigger a margin call that could bankrupt the entire institution. They bet against reality, and they lost. The market halt was their only way to survive another 24 hours. They are currently negotiating with the Fed for a secret backdoor bailout, but the world is watching. The era of JP Morgan controlling the price of reality is coming to a violent and public end. The most powerful weapon the elites have is your own psychology. They want you to see the market halt and think, oh, it's just a glitch, everything is fine. They want you to stay calm while they rob you of your future. But for the smart money, the halt is a signal to act. When the government tells you not to panic, that is exactly when you should be moving. The system failure is the moment of truth. It is the point where the people realize the emperor has no clothes, and the banks have no silver to back their promises. As the official exchanges fail, a massive black market for silver is emerging in major U.S. cities. In states like Texas and Florida, silver is being traded for fuel, land, and food at prices that bear no resemblance to the COMEX ticker. This is the real economy reasserting itself. If you're waiting for the official price to tell you what silver is worth, you are already too late. The black market is the only place where true price discovery is happening, and it's telling us that the dollar is dying a slow, painful death. The green energy transition is officially dead because it ran out of silver. The solar industry alone was consuming nearly 20% of the global supply, and with the vaults at zero, production has ground to a halt. The elites promised you a green future, but they forgot to buy the metal to build it. Now, our rivals in the East hold all the cards. They have the energy, they have the metal, and they have the future. We are left with nothing but empty promises and unpayable debts. The FDIC tells you your money is safe, but they don't have the assets to back that promise in a systemic collapse. In a silver-driven market halt, the FDIC is legally allowed to delay your insurance payout for years. By the time you get your dollars back, hyperinflation will have made them worthless. Physical silver is the only insurance policy that pays out instantly. It has no counterparty risk, and it works when the banking grid is frozen. The empty COMEX vaults are the final proof that the FDIC is backing a system with no hard assets to support it. The BRICS alliance is moving toward a 1:15 gold to silver ratio for their new currency, while the West is still pretending it's 185. This discrepancy is what's driving the vault drain. China and Russia are buying silver at a massive discount from Western exchanges and revaluing it at home. They are literally stealing the wealth of the West because our bankers are too arrogant to admit that the paper market is broken. The system failure is the sound of the West finally losing the currency war to the resource-rich East. We are entering the era of the great devaluation. Your dollar isn't gaining value. The metal is simply returning to its true inflation-adjusted price. The middle class is being wiped out in real time as the value of their savings evaporates. If you aren't holding physical gold or silver, you are holding a currency that is being rejected by the world's most important resources. The market halt is the signal that the slow burn of inflation has turned into an explosion of reality. We are in the final 48-hour window before the limit-up halt becomes a permanent market suspension. Once the COMEX officially admits they cannot fulfill deliveries, the price of physical silver at the local coin shop will double overnight. You have a very narrow window to secure your physical position at any price. After that, silver will become a black market asset, traded in secret at prices that will make $85 look like a gift. Secure your sovereignty today while the exits are still open. Physics always wins, and the physics of an empty vault says the system has failed. You cannot print silver. You cannot QE a silver mine into existence. The East is embracing reality while the West is clinging to a digital fantasy. By hoarding the physical metal and letting the price explode in the East, Russia and China are making it impossible for the U.S. to fund its deficit. We are being isolated from the world's most important commodities. The era of the American consumer living off the world's resources is over. The bear of economic reality has finally awakened. It has eaten the silver, it has drained the vaults, and now it is tearing down the digital grid of Wall Street. You cannot hide from the math of $36 trillion in debt. You can only position yourself to survive the fallout. Align your personal balance sheet with the rising powers of the future. physical resources, and sound money, rather than the dying debt traps of the past. The limit up signal is the universe telling you that the era of paper lies is officially over. Secure your sovereignty today. Move your wealth into assets that the government cannot freeze and the central banks cannot print. If you hold the debt of the West, you will share in its collapse. If you hold the assets of reality, you will survive the transition. The Great Reset is here, and it's not going to be soft. Subscribe for the next emergency update, because in this economy, being 24 hours late means being broke. The market halt is just the beginning. Protect yourself now.